When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out.
Good morning, and welcome to the home of the Calgary Unitarians. Whoever you are, whomever you love, and wherever you are on your journey of faith or search for meaning, welcome. If you're visiting for the first time or for the first time in a long time, know that we are grateful to have you with us. We come together in beloved community to grow in wisdom, welcome and deepen relationships, and act for a just and sustainable world. Wherever we are located, we recognize our responsibility to be stewards of the land that we're on, and acknowledge that we do this with those for whom it is their traditional territory. Here in Calgary, we acknowledge our treaty relationship with the people of the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising the Siksika, the Piikani, and the Kainai First Nations, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and the Stoney Nakoda, including the Chiniki, the Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations. And Calgary is also home to Treaty 7 region, the Métis Nation of Alberta. In offering a land acknowledgement, we honor those who have long been the stewards and accept our shared responsibility for being good caretakers. We acknowledge too that treaties were entered into as a collaboration between settlers and the Indigenous people, making us all treaty people. My name is Pam Rickey, and I use the pronouns she and her, and I have the privilege of serving on your board of trustees. This congregation is special to me as a community of shared values, friendship, and mutual support in spiritual exploration and in social justice work. Please join us after the service for a virtual coffee hour where we meet in small breakout rooms and get a chance to socialize. And now we'll go over to Deborah for our chalice lighting.
Our Unitarian and Unitarian Universalist siblings throughout the planet light a chalice to gather us into sacred space. The chalice lit amongst us is a beacon of hope in a world in crisis, a beacon of possibility made manifest in community, a beacon of warmth through our interconnectedness, a beacon of light, illuminating our shared wisdom and vision, a beacon of connection by our being together. With these words, I light our chalice. One of my daily spiritual practices is gratitude. Before I rise each morning, I express appreciation for at least 3 things. And as I go to sleep at night, I reflect on the gifts of the day. Have to admit that some have more than others. This gratitude practice has been such a gift in these times of so many challenges. and it finds its way into our Sunday gathering as appreciation for those who are making it possible. Our AV team members with us this morning, Mitch and Daria, and Bob, who will polish and post the service to the YouTube channel. And our participants, Pam, Christopher, our amazing program staff, Jane and Sheila, and our guest, my colleague, Reverend Heather Ryan Starr, joining us from her home sanctuary in Connecticut. The possibility of hearing different voices is one of the gifts of these virtual times. Times that have opened up so many possibilities, for sure. And one of the greatest gifts that I have and daily am thankful for is that for the last 10 years, all save but my first year with you, is to have shared ministry with our talented, in so very many ways, Director of Music, Jane Perry.
You're too kind, and it's been a pleasure. Good morning, friends. It's good to be with you again this morning in this virtual environment. All of our songs this morning have to do with the idea of sitting in the mystery together. Sometimes the path forward is not always clear, even though we make plans. Sometimes those plans, as we've seen this pandemic year, have gone a little sideways on us. And that's okay, because we're sitting in the mystery together. Our first song this morning is Where Do We Come From? With words by the French painter Paul Gauguin and music by Vancouver composer Brian Tate. It's meant to be sung as a round, and so what we're going to do is sing the 4 lines through together. Each line repeats, and when we go back, it's your choice if you want to keep singing with me or if you want to make it into a round by waiting for me to go on to the next statement, and then you sing the previous statement, the one that I've just done. Here we go. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going?
Good morning, everyone. It's such a bright, sunny day out there this morning. It's starting to feel like spring. And as we emerge from winter, my thoughts turn to the connection of the web of life that we have and all the little creatures emerging, birds coming back and the squirrels in the backyard. And so this Sunday, the children and I are going to be talking about all our friends that visit us in our backyard. And with the youth, we're going to be talking about how animals living on the fringes, how we can welcome them in an urbanized environment and making those nature corridors. So I'm excited by that. In this week's Children and Youth newsletter, which we send out every week, and if you'd like to sign up, just send me an email, sheila@calgaryunitarians.ca. We have 32 bird feeder crafts. So 32 ways you can make something from recycling, from Lego, from anything you have on hand to make a lovely bird feeder to invite those birds back into your yard this spring. And so that's very exciting. And another way that we can kind of bring joy to this time of season is this little bucket of sunshine that I've made here. So here's a little card you can make. It says bucket of sunshine to brighten your day. And I just went out and got everything yellow. So we've got a yellow daisy, we've got lemon juice, we've got yellow nail polish for your toenails, we've got some honey in here and some M&Ms and some mangoes and even some little yellow Post-it notes. So if you're looking for a way to brighten someone's day, try making them a little bucket of sunshine with the things that you might have on hand at home. And now I would love to introduce Reverend Heather as she shares an uplifting story for all of us.
Good morning, all. It is a genuine delight to be with you this morning. I had the opportunity to go to the Philippines and northern India a year and a half ago with my two kids, who were then 7 and 2 years old. I still kind of can't believe that we did this trip with a 2-year-old, but we did. We were visiting Universalists in the Philippines and Unitarian Universalists in northern India. And so along our way, I was on the lookout for children's books to help get them through the long times on the plane and so forth. And I was introduced by a parent friend who lives in New Delhi to the Farmer Falgu stories. In this one, which I'm going to share with you now, Farmer Falgu sets out with one vision in mind, but things don't exactly go according to plan. This is Farmer Falgu Goes to the Market by Chitra Soundar and Kanika Nair. I want you to be able to see the pictures, so here they come. Wonderful. It was market day. Farmer Falgu loaded his cart with baskets of tomatoes, sacks of onions, bags of chilies, bunches of coriander, white eggs, brown eggs, and some duck eggs too. And then he set off to the market. The bullocks happily trotted down the road. Trot, trot, trot. The road had potholes. Bump, dunk. The cart wobbled and rattled. Stop, stop, shouted Farmer Falgu. He turned and inspected his vegetables. The tomatoes were fine. The coriander looked comfortable. But what was that? Oh no, he cried. The white eggs were cracked. He examined the other baskets. Luckily, the brown eggs and the duck eggs were intact. So Farmer Falgu set off again. Trot, trot, trot. A family of ducks crossed the road. Quack, quack. Whoa, shouted Farmer Falgu. Watch where you are going. But Mama Duck and her little ducks waddled along slowly. The bullocks stopped. The cart rattled. The baskets toppled. The sacks slid down their perch. Bags of chilies and bunches of coriander were squashed under the onions. Farmer Falgu jumped to catch the brown eggs as they slid down their perch. Oh no, he despaired. Now the brown eggs were cracked too. The market was still a few miles away. Farmer Falgu looked at his cart. Well, he thought, I still have the baskets of tomatoes, the sacks of onions, the bags of chilies, and many bunches of coriander, and I have the duck eggs too. Go slow, he told his bullocks as he got back onto the cart. He picked up the basket of duck eggs and placed it on his lap. The cart went past a family of goats. The cart went past a crowd of children. Farmer Falgu checked the eggs. Everything was fine. Until a big lorry sped past the bullock cart, blaring honk, honk. The bullocks veered down the road. Farmer Falgu was thrown against the side. The duck eggs fell on top of the onions. Thud. Oh no, wailed Farmer Falgu. Now the duck eggs were cracked too. Now all the eggs were cracked. The coriander was no longer comfortable. It was squashed, and the chilies were crushed. Farmer Falgu wondered if he should just go back home. No, I'll go and try my best, he decided. The market is not far away. But as soon as he reached the market, ma, the goats tried to eat his coriander. Oink, oink, the pigs splashed mud over the cart. Farmer Falgu looked around. There was only one thing to do. He found his friend Kishan. Kishan, he called out, do you have some pans I can borrow? Farmer Falgu fetched a pan from Kishan's shop. He lit up a stove, sliced the onions, diced the tomatoes, and chopped the chilies. The pan sizzled on the stove. Crack! Farmer Falgu broke the cracked eggs and stirred. The eggs bubbled. The smell wafted through the market. And quickly, a long queue formed to eat Farmer Falgu's delicious omelets. And here, the final picture doesn't have any words. It's just the picture of his queue, the queue lining up for Farmer Falgu's omelets. Thus ends the story. And now back to Reverend Deborah.
Thank you so much for that story. It makes me smile and think about how many possibilities present themselves to us. When we gather, we take time to center, to call within ourselves and to be present there as even though we are with each other. We do this with words, some silence, and a musical response. The words for centering this morning are words from the indigenous Puerto Rican Jew, Aurora Levins Morales. I invite you to center as you hear these words. Another world is possible. Say these words when you lie down, when you rise up, when you go out, and when you return. In times of mourning and in times of joy. Inscribe them on your doorpost, embroider them on your garments. Tattoo them on your shoulders, teach them to your children, your neighbors, your enemies. Recite them in your sleep. Here in this cruel shadow of empire, another world is possible. This is your sacred task. This is your power. Imagine the exact smell of the summer streets in which no one has been shot. The muscles you have never unclenched from worry, gone soft as newborn skin. The sparkling taste of food when we know that no one on earth is hungry, that the beggars are fed, that the old man under the bridge and the woman wrapping herself in a thin sheet in the back seat of a car, and the children who suck on stones, nest under a flock of roofs that keep multiplying their shelter. Lean with all your being toward that day when the poor of the world shake down a rain of good fortune out of the heavy clouds, and justice rolls down like waters. Defend the world as if it were your child. It is your child. Defend it as if it were your lover. It is your lover. When you inhale and when you exhale, breathe the possibility of another world into the 37.2 trillion cells of your body until it shines with hope. Then imagine more. Don't waver. Don't let despair sink its sharp teeth into the throat with which you sing. Escalate your dreams. Make them burn so fiercely that you can follow them down any dark alleyway of history and not lose your way. Make them burn clear as a starry drinking gourd over the grim fog of exhaustion, and keep walking. Hold hands. Share water. Keep imagining, so that we and the children of our children's children may live. We take now some time to acknowledge joys and concerns, sorrows and celebrations in our midst. We do this by naming them aloud and by lighting a candle in recognition. Our global candle this morning is in recognition of tomorrow, March 8th, being International Women's Day. This year's theme is Choose to Challenge. A challenged world is an altered world and an alert world. Individually, we're all responsible for our own thoughts and actions all day, every day. We can all choose to challenge and call out gender bias and inequality. We can all choose to seek out and celebrate women's achievements. Collectively, we can all help create an inclusive world. From challenge comes change, so let us all choose to challenge. International Women's Day gives us a chance to have a physical recognition of this. This is the movement that lets us say, we choose to challenge. I invite you to do so as I light our global candle. There are always concerns and sorrows in our midst. The need for healing for all of us. And this morning we send that healing energy to those still in hospital, or those whose emergency visits resulted in going home for recuperation. Those recovering from infection and migraines and all forms of discomfort. Healing energy as well to our planet. Anxieties are with us, each and every one. Let its presence shed light on things that need to change, so that rather than be paralyzed by it, we use it as fuel to inspire us to change what we can, and ask for help when we need the support to do so. And there have been losses in the last week. We can each name them in our own lives. May the presence of community mean there is never the loss of hope. Holding the sorrows and concerns we have personally in our hearts or speaking them aloud as I light our candle of concern and sorrow. And life being what life is, with the sorrows come also the joys. We celebrate March birthdays. Some of you, as well as your offspring, have March birthdays. My heart is warmed when every day I hear of someone getting or scheduled to get their vaccine. There is a hope and an optimism in the air that has not been felt for almost a year now. There is such a joy that more than a dozen members of this community are participating in becoming an anti-racist ally workshop, the ones being offered by the CUC, the Canadian Unitarian Council. Their energy and inspiration will, I am sure, keep us moving as a congregation toward more inclusive and anti-racist allyship. Next week's service will be another step on that journey. We rejoice also that people can join us from wherever they may be, here in Calgary and beyond, and that a few of our members who were without virtual access are with us now, and I thank those who made that happen. We so celebrate that you are here, and also those who may join us later on YouTube at another time. All are welcome. For the joys and celebrations spoken aloud, and for those held in the silence of your heart, I invite you to reflect or speak them aloud as I light our candle of joy and celebration. And a final note of joy is our opportunity to be generous, and the stewardship campaign is now underway. With that, we take time to welcome the voice of members of our community who wish to share its meaning with you. This morning, I welcome Christopher Feets to offer some words.
Thank you, Deborah, and good morning, all. I first became aware of the Calgary Unitarians when I was about 15, when my stepmother and my father took my brothers and me to what was then called the Unitarian Church to join the youth group there. That first day, I was elected vice president, not because of my organizational skills or abilities, but due to the hard work of our youth advisor, Sandy Tyndale. We traveled and had many fascinating discussions. We participated in the 1992 General Assembly. That year, it wasn't sunny, it didn't snow, it rained. We discussed when or if or how to remove references to God in the hymns we sang. And I learned the songs Building Bridges and Tu l'Ecclesio Ale. I learned that one of the most gentlest and yet still effective ways to bring us small groups of people back to the larger group conversation is to sing, listen, listen, listen to my heart song. My fondest memories of those times were attending the Aurora Institute's retreats at the Goldeye Center on a lake between the mountains and the foothills. Swimming in the lake, eating, performing skits and songs in the hall, and staying late, sharing and listening to the late evening credo exercises, the hugs and the goodbyes to those from distant congregations. Like many Unitarian youth, I stopped attending due to post-secondary and other interests. For example, in my mid-20s, I joined what was called the Taoist Tai Chi Society of Canada, what is now called Fong La Gok Taoist Tai Chi. Sometime after that, I moved to the neighborhood, 6 blocks to the south of the Calgary Unitarians building. Eventually, I realized that I was close to the building and decided to attend Unitarian services as an adult. Now, the last time I had a chance to speak to all of you, though some of you are meeting me for the first time, and some of you were there, are not here today. Anyway, last time I listed all of the committees and activities I participated in, or in which I participated. These days, I'm still a member of the audiovisual crew and a member of the choir. It's through singing that I find lots of connection. I participate in Calgary Unitarians to be reminded of the larger picture, to be reminded that we are kin to all that lives and dies, to be with others who contemplate and move through the struggle of life in the same way or very differently than me. And that, as a friend of mine described, we are a species who have one foot in the spiritual world and one foot in the world where you still have to brush your teeth. I mention the FLK Taoist Tai Chi organization along with Calgary Unitarians because it is through participating, living, and growing in these two groups of people that I've learned it is through working on projects together that trust is built and understanding is built. And it is through trust and understanding that relationships are built. And through building relationships, community is built. The FLK organization, like the Calgary Unitarians, is run primarily by volunteers. By volunteering, dishes and food are both done and prepared. But whenever one is part of a community on some path to enlightenment, no matter how many willing and eager volunteers you have working with you, you come to realize eventually there is something, some service, some piece of equipment that you have to buy. You need money. I've come to understand that both volunteers and money are needed for organizations to thrive. If one can, one volunteers. If one can, one donates money. If one is very, very lucky, one donates both. And with that, I'll pass the spotlight on to Mitch.
Thank you for those inspiring words, Christopher. It's so great to hear you singing again. It's, yeah, I miss choir too, in-person choir. I'm Mitch Mitchell, and I'm on the stewardship team. The pledge campaign is now in full swing. Members and friends of Calgary Unitarians, you should have received your pledge package by now. But if you haven't, or if you're newer to the congregation and have no pledge package, you can find out about our stewardship process on our website. And you can make a pledge simply by sending an email to pledge@calgaryunitarians.ca. We ask you all to reflect on what Calgary Unitarians means to you and how the community enhances your life. So think then about how you can support our beloved community with a pledge of contributions for the coming year. Some can give little, some can give a lot. Please consider being as generous as you can. We all know this is a difficult time for many. Remember that a pledge isn't a contract, but only a statement of your intention. It allows the church administration to create a budget for the coming year, knowing what our income will likely be. Join us on March 21st for Celebration Sunday, when we invite you to make your pledges during the service, if you haven't already done so. You can rustle up some chili, which is our traditional Celebration Sunday lunch, with the recipes we included in the pledge package. In any case, please make your pledge by Saturday, March 27th, so your name will be included in the draw in the service the next day for a very tempting gift basket. Thank you. And now to Jane Perry for our next song.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah, 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 yeah.
Thank all of you so much. It's just absolutely delightful to be a part of your community this morning. It is kind of miraculous being able to be with you and still be in my home in Connecticut on the other side of the continent. So it feels magical and amazing all at the same time. So as I mentioned earlier, in November 2019, which really was not so long ago, I had the great privilege of traveling to the Philippines with my family as part of my and my spouse's 3-month sabbatical from the congregation we've served as co-ministers for several years. Even at the time of our elaborate planning in September and October in the months prior, I felt like we needed to go on this trip around the world right then, because I just had this gut feeling that who knows when we would ever be able to do it again. You know, who knows when our kids would be able to just take a month off from school and join us in this big adventure. And who knows what the future would hold, and has in fact held, right? So it makes this trip seem all the more amazing to me now. And the Unitarian Universalist friend in my life that I've had for the longest is Reverend Joseph Santos Lyons, who now lives just outside of Manila on Luzon with his wife, Amy. Some years ago, they had a dream together. Amy is from the Philippines originally, and so they had a dream of moving back there and creating some kind of community. I wasn't really sure what it involved. And when we visited in November 2019, I'll admit, it looked a little implausible to me. Everything that they said was going to come together. There were struggles with contractors, and tens of thousands of dollars swindled away from them. Most of the day-to-day work on the site had to be conducted in Tagalog, which my childhood Oregonian friend Joseph does not speak. Workers were living on the site day and night, and their clothes were hung up on hangers on the basically outdoor work site. And with the rainy season coming soon, it all just seemed like, really? You can see the clothes of the workers. And this is our 2-year-old at the time, loved drawing in chalk on the concrete walls. So we were drawing a blessing in chalk onto the concrete there. It was a blessing to get up and away from the smog and hustle of the city of Manila, which is the most densely populated city in the world. Random factoid I learned, and it felt that way. So now, just 16 months later, really, their dream is real and beautiful and tangible. You can go online and look them up in that way that websites make faraway things seem more real. I'm putting the website there in the chat so you can click on it in a separate window and see all that they offer. The Center for Organizing, Renewal, and Leadership, or CORAL, now offers retreat space, organizational consulting, a free library, which is very unusual in urban Philippines, and Unitarian Universalist ministry and spiritual direction. All these things are available, and people can book spaces online and have a chef come in and cater healthy food for their gathering, and it has truly come to pass. I've been aware that the pandemic has made realizing this dream of theirs even more challenging than it already was, of course. And yet they persisted, and it is happening, and happening beautifully. My pondering today, as we all near or pass our own 1-year anniversaries of going into pandemic mode, is how the rest of our lives and the goings-on of our larger communities have carried on, have had to carry on, right? Even though the pandemic has turned so much of what we thought to be steady topsy-turvy. Each of our lives, the organizations we're connected to, we all had a purpose and goals before the pandemic. And now, as we begin to emerge, we can find again that still moving stream of clarity, along with the pandemic learnings so fresh in our minds. Central pandemic learning: dramatic shifting is more possible than we may have previously believed. Right? I think we've all experienced and observed that. Like, oh my gosh, I thought church was slow to change. I have seen other dramatic changes before in my life. You surely have as well. Just one example, I can still clearly remember being a much younger lesbian in a relationship in the late 1990s and feeling fairly certain that civil unions were the most we were ever going to be able to achieve in my lifetime. And then, of course, GLBT folks and couples I knew started going to Canada to get married in 2003. So once again, Canada was ahead of the curve, as you also are in adding Two-Spirit to the GLBTQ acronym. So that's just one example of something I've seen change far faster than I would have expected. Given how much has changed and so quickly, we may look ahead now and wonder, what is ahead now? What changes are we assuming are going to be slow but could happen much more quickly than we realize? Where are we coming from? What are we? Where are we going? Writer, thinker, and organizational consultant Margaret Wheatley wrote, pre-pandemic, she wrote, "In this new world of the 21st century, this interconnected planet of increased uncertainty and volatility, organizations are now confronted with two sources of change: the traditional type that is initiated and managed, and external changes over which no one has control. We are just beginning to experience," she continues, "what it is like to operate in a global environment of increasing chaos, of events beyond our control that have a devastating impact on our internal operations and culture." All the while we take in predictions of doom and worries about economic downturns and long-term impacts of the pandemic, amid calls to prepare for this or that disaster, we also must remain soft, flexible, open-hearted, pliable, adaptable. On September 11th, 2001, which is 20 years ago this fall, you will mostly remember, along with me, the tragedies. But amidst the horrors many of us watched over and over on television that day, Margaret Wheatley observed through her consulting work that the U.S. Federal Aviation Authority, or FAA, cleared the skies of nearly 4,500 planes carrying 350,000 passengers in just a few hours. 75% of those 4,500 planes landed within the first hour, more than one landing per second. It was an unprecedented feat for the agency, one that had not been simulated since the end of the Cold War. And it was the first day on the job for the top FAA official who gave the initial order to clear the skies. Can you imagine September 11th, 2001 being your first day on the job in charge of the Federal Aviation Authority? Controllers had to land these planes while also staying vigilant for signs that any other planes had been hijacked. They succeeded through intense cooperation, absolute focus and dedication, and because they made decisions locally, including some that were outside of existing policies. In the months following, officials started to try and capture this astonishing feat in new procedures. But then they scrapped the idea. A lot of things were done intuitively, things that you can't write down in a textbook or you can't train somebody to do. Since then, the FAA's policy and plan for preparing for another crisis of unknown dimensions has been to rely on the judgment, intuition, and commitment of its controllers and managers. Their plan is to believe in one another's good judgment, intuition, and common commitment. I have been thinking of this perspective and retelling so much these days as people and organizations all around me and all of us try to put what we've learned into writing, into waivers and disclaimers and policies, right? But there is always a limit to what we can prepare ourselves for, and a need to preserve our trust in one another's good judgment, intuition, and common commitment. It's been a busy, strange, and at times turbulent winter for me, probably for many of you as well. And sometime in the hustle of January, when I can even keep track of what month I'm in, right? I received a short email from a long-lost congregant I hadn't heard from or seen really at all during the pandemic period. She shared that she had grown up in a family that didn't really ever talk about death or loss, and that now her family's dog was being put to sleep. And did I have any suggestions for how to help them grieve as a family? She has 2 young boys about the ages of my own kids and lives a good distance away from me. And I'm sure I don't need to remind you that we're all in a pandemic, so it was hard to know at first what to offer. But I responded to her email, and she did share with me that it was fine to share this story, by the way. I responded to her email, and she responded to my email. And pretty soon I was sitting with the question of, would I go over to her home to officiate at a small, private, short pet memorial service for her family? Well, I'm not sure I've ever officiated at a pet memorial service before, so I had to do some thinking, a little research, a little checking in with my marvelous, wise colleagues near and far. But soon I had some draft words, and eventually there was a date and time set, and the ashes of the sweet little dog were delivered to the family in a small box. And I realized that what she and I were creating together, this mom and I, was a pivotal first-time experience for her children of how to acknowledge grief. I stopped at the store on the way and did what one does when going to a memorial. I got some flowers and a card and wrote the card directly to her two boys, who on some level, of course, that's not what they wanted in their lives. But on the other hand, I think they appreciated that we were showing them how to remember, how to acknowledge loss, how to do this grieving thing. When I arrived at their home, she met me in the driveway and explained we had talked about having it outside because of the pandemic, but because of the weather, she really felt that we needed to do it inside, but just inside from the garage and with the windows open. So I kept my coat on. She'd set up a beautiful table with flowers and the ashes and pictures of Steve the dog. And each kid did want to get up and come stand behind the table individually and each take a moment to say a few words about what they would most remember about Steve. The sound of Steve running around in the house or the way he'd jump up on them when they came home. It was absolutely beautiful and tender, and it was also ordinary and simple. Together, we had created something that her family of origin had felt to be too difficult, too impossible to confront directly. We crafted an all-ages acknowledgement, a time for being real with each other. And then I left, and the family had special takeout lunch delivered afterwards. It was so sweet and also just part of their day and their lives in the way that we all need to learn to live with our losses, along with all the other things and activities that our lives hold. I wish I could say that when asked if I'll do something not already on my calendar, yes, of course, is always my response. But it's not. Sometimes I have to be reminded, to be nudged, to be pushed into being my best self. Honestly, I think that's part of what we're all a part of congregations for, to stay grounded in our core values, to keep nudging ourselves and one another towards being our best selves, whatever that looks like for each of us in this ever-changing world. Former palliative care chaplain Steve Jenkinson teaches about using our real and genuine feelings of vulnerability and tenderness as a doorway to being with the universal reality of our mortality, so that we might more fully cultivate and feel our aliveness in the here and the now. When working with medical professionals so trained to always do something more to try to fix things, Jenkinson talks about the need to move from hopeless to hopeful to hope-free. So too, Margaret Wheatley encourages us to think of Václav Havel, who describes hope as an attribute we carry in us always, a state of being that is not dependent on outcomes. Havel's description of hope is a dimension of the soul, an orientation of the spirit, an orientation of the heart. It is not the conviction that something will turn out well, but the certainty that something makes sense, regardless of how it turns out. Hope is not the conviction that something will turn out well, but the certainty that something makes sense regardless of how it turns out. Some trust in our ability to deal with challenging situations in the future has, I hope, been restored in you as we all observe how much change we have handled this past year, this year of pandemic pivoting. We have been through so many pandemic chapters this past year that it can be easy to forget. But I urge you to take the time to remember the blessings. Remember all the masks people sewed in the first weeks and months of this thing. Remember all the phone calls and emails, cards, and outdoor connections made to reach out and check on each other. Remember all that we have all learned about how to use Zoom, buy essentials online, and how to run errands in new ways. I talked to a colleague recently who, even though he describes this past year as awful, also said that every day he writes down some blessing of this time that he might not otherwise have experienced or noticed. Remember the blessings, the sudden shifts you would not have previously thought possible in so short a time. My wish for all of us, for our shared world and for our common future, is that we do not allow ourselves to get locked into any single certain storyline about what is happening or what might happen tomorrow or what our successful day is going to look like, right? May we hold on to there being many possibilities. May we remain flexible, open to change and evolution all around us and even, perhaps especially, within ourselves. Moving forward along with the spring that is oh so subtly, oh so gradually emerging around and beneath us, even you all in Alberta, may we too resolve to reach out more, to say yes more than we might be naturally inclined. May we allow for the possibility that though things may not go as well as we can dream of, there are still a million beautiful ways they could unfold if we lead not with our disappointment, but with our persevering, life-saving gratitude. Hold on to Aurora Levins Morales' call. When you inhale and when you exhale, breathe the possibility of another world into the 37.2 trillion cells of your body until it shines with hope. Then imagine more. Escalate your dreams. May we find that there is more already possible than we had ever thought, that we can feed our every need, and may we live with love into that abundant vision. May it be so. May we find one day soon and with amazement that it is so.
As we move into our offertory portion of our service, we do so to the words of Eric Walker Wickstrom. Let us look into our hearts. It is said the Lord loves a cheerful giver, yet will accept from a grouch as well. As we take a few moments to touch that place of giving within, may each of us look into not just our wallets or our checkbooks to see how much we have with us. Let us also look into our hearts and see what is available there. How much love, how much generosity, how much faith, how much gratitude, and how much hope. And let us take our offering from that account.
I want to thank Reverend Heather for her words this morning that I found inspiring. That we need to shift our idea of moving at the speed of church and what that used to mean and what it can mean now. That our potential for possibility and to contribute to the changing and shifting world is with us and dynamic within us and our community. That we recognize our contribution to building a new way. Jane, our closing song.
building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free of hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without peace, this world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry.
As we bring our service to a close, we extinguish the chalice that was lit to create this sacred space. We extinguish its light, taking it within us now as a seed of love, as a seed of hope, and as a recognition that we carry the love and strength of this community within each of us. With these words, I extinguish our chalice.
Friends, we welcome you to join our virtual coffee hour, and all you need to do to get there is to click on the link that has just appeared in the chat area of your screen. Let's close our service together by singing our sung benediction, Spirit of Life.